everybody, and welcome back to Fibro After Dark. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you're all doing as well as you can be. Firstly, apologies because I have been super quiet this week on social media. Unfortunately, my father took ill earlier this week, and it has been a really difficult time trying to navigate work, my health, hospital visits, and not to mention all the stress that goes with that, and the worry. And it's never nice to see that your parents are getting older. You kind of feel like they're always going to be there. So it has been a very, very tough week. And on the back of that, my emotional spending has definitely took a little bit of a hit. Some terrible decisions this week. I'm laughing at the memory of these terrible decisions. So the first one was definitely a tattoo lipstick from Shein. It was one of those ones where you paint on and then after a couple of minutes you peel it off. And I think it was just food colouring because literally everything was stained. My hands, like bathroom sink, my flannels, and then I couldn't get it to peel off. So then I ended up trying to wipe it off. And then all I did was smear it all over my face. And of course, as always, when you have something new, you decide you're going to try it out 5 minutes before you have to leave the house. And it just looked like an absolute bloodbath. The lipstick did stay on, but it also stayed on my teeth as well. And it was just horrific. It actually reminded me, because my background's in dentistry, and it reminds me of disclosing tablets that you used to recommend for children. It's literally like a little food colouring tablet that you chew. And that's what it reminded me of. Literally, it was just like everything was red. It was absolute nightmare. Another terrible decision, depending on which way you look at it. I think it's actually one of my best decisions, but my partner would definitely disagree. And that has included these teeny tiny hands. They just make me laugh so much. It's so childish, but I just love them, especially where this week's been really hard to adult. And I've just really enjoyed these and doing silly photos in random cooking scenarios and with these teeny tiny hands. What's that about? I just love them so much. Anyway, on with the show. So today I wanted to talk about why summer isn't easy for those of us who suffer with a chronic illness. And here in the UK, we are due another heat wave this forthcoming week. And it's not only about managing the heat and trying to stay cool, but it's also understanding why it hits a little bit differently when you do have a chronic illness and it's not the same as other people experiencing the heat. I know for a lot of people, summer is something that they really look forward to. It's the season of holidays, barbecues, sitting in the garden, making the most of the sunshine. But if you live with fibromyalgia or another chronic illness, summer can feel very different. And whilst everyone else is saying, isn't this weather lovely? Many of us are quietly thinking, I just really want it over with because I just cannot cool down. So today's episode is all about how heat affects fibromyalgia and chronic illness, why it can make our symptoms worse, some of the science behind what's happening inside our bodies when we're going through a heat wave, and a few gentle ways of how we can look after ourselves on the forthcoming hot days. So just a reminder before we get into it, I am not a professional. I am just somebody who struggles with fibromyalgia and wanting to help others that are feeling the same. So why does this heat affect us so differently? One thing that I've learned over the years is not everybody with fibromyalgia reacts to the heat in the same way. Some people struggle much more in the winter. And some people find the cold actually makes things worse and that aggravates their pains and their symptoms. But others, like me personally, struggle when the temperature soars. And some people, unfortunately, struggle with both. It's worse in the cold, worse in the heat. But that's one of the difficult things about having a chronic illness is that although we all have our same diagnosis, our symptoms can look completely different. So it's really important not to compare yourself to somebody else because we are each on our own very unique journey. So heat can leave us feeling completely drained. It can increase fatigue, make our muscles ache, causes the tension, headaches, the dizziness, worsens the brain fog. And sometimes it just feels like your body simply cannot regulate its temperature properly. And that is exactly what's happening. Even something as simple as walking around the supermarket or doing the washing up can feel like you've just run a marathon. What's actually going on inside our bodies during a heat wave? There are several theories that help explain why the hot weather can make our symptoms worse. One of the biggest things is something called temperature regulation. Our bodies are constantly working to keep our internal temperature stable. And for many people with a chronic illness, that system doesn't appear to work quite as effectively as what it could do for someone else. That means that our bodies have to work much harder to cool themselves down. And when your body is already using the extra energy just to regulate its temperature, there's less energy available for everything else going on. That's why many of us feel absolutely exhausted before we've done anything, even more so than usual. Another theory involves the nervous system. Fibromyalgia is thought to involve something called central sensitization. And this means that the brain and the nervous system become much more sensitive to things that wouldn't normally cause such a strong response. Pain signals become completely amplified. Temperature changes can feel much more intense. Even something as simple as somebody touching you to give you a hug can actually cause you significant pain. And it's almost as though the body's volume control has just been jacked right up. When the weather becomes hotter than what we're used to, our nervous system interprets that as another stress, and that adds more pressure to a system that's already working overtime just to try and regulate itself. Hot weather also increases our risk of dehydration. That's not something that's solely for people who suffer with chronic illness, but it is a higher risk factor, because even mild dehydration for somebody suffering from a chronic illness can cause such dramatic fatigue and dizziness and headaches and the brain fog as well. It just makes everything so much worse. For me personally, suffering with fibromyalgia, I'm already dealing with all these symptoms every day. So dehydration can just make them feel even more overwhelming. And that's why drinking little and often can make such a big difference. And adding electrolytes into the mix as well is a big, big game changer. And we're going to come back to the importance of electrolytes in a moment. All these things don't cure fibromyalgia or chronic illness by any means, if only. If only it was as simple as drinking a glass of water, although I'm sure you've been told that. Some of the cures that we hear, I should use my little hands for that, but I can't do the little quotations. Some of the quotes that we get, one of my favourite ones is, you just need to go for a run. Just need to go for a run. As if. But it does help to remove one extra thing that your body is fighting against. You know, when we're hot, our blood vessels widen. And what that means is that our heart is having to work extra to pump harder to get that blood towards the skin in order for the heat to escape. We sweat to cool ourselves down, and all of that requires additional energy that you wouldn't be needing to use on a cooler day. For somebody who has already got limited energy because of their illness, it's like having another appliance plugged into an already overloaded extension lead. It's no wonder that we feel completely wiped out by the heat. Many people who suffer with a chronic illness already struggle with restorative sleep. Then along comes a super hot night and you're too warm. You wake up repeatedly, you toss and you turn, and you never quite get comfortable. So you wake up feeling even more exhausted than usual, because what little energy your sleep puts back into the tank hasn't happened overnight, because your heart is working harder to keep your body cool. So all your energy is completely gone. So then adding poor sleep into the mix can increase the pain sensitivity, the fatigue and the brain fog. And again, it will just amplify all those symptoms for the following day. And then it becomes that vicious cycle. You can't sleep because you're hot. You're so tired. You're so exhausted because your body's working extra. And so this vicious cycle begins. And it's not just the heat. I think this is something that's really important to remember and to remind ourselves of, that when somebody says it's hot for everybody, obviously, I know that. I'm not stupid. I know it's hot for everybody. I'm not walking around with my own little weather forecast just above my head. What the difference is that our bodies are not responding in the same way to those who are completely healthy and fit. And for many of us, the hot weather isn't simply just being uncomfortable. It's another physical challenge that our bodies are trying to deal with on top of everything else that we struggle with every single day. And I think understanding the science behind it can sometimes help us to be a little bit kinder to ourselves and to remind yourself that it's not a weakness, it's not laziness, and that your body is working really incredibly hard. And even if nobody else can see it, doesn't mean that it's not real. And I think I like to think of it as though with a chronic illness, our bodies are already running a marathon to keep up with being able to function at that base level. And by throwing excessive heat into the mix simply adds another hill to climb in that marathon. Let's talk about hydration and the importance of electrolytes. One thing that I've become much more aware of recently is the importance of electrolytes. Most of us know we need to drink water when it's hot, but when we're sweating more than usual, we're not just losing water, we're also losing important minerals called electrolytes. And these electrolytes include sodium, potassium, magnesium, calcium, and loads of other additional vitamins and minerals. And what electrolytes do is that they help our muscles and our nerves to function properly and to support our hydration and help our bodies maintain that fluid balance much more efficiently than just water alone. Because if those levels drop, it can contribute to our symptoms and it contributes to that volume switch being put back up a little bit more. You know, it contributes to another hill in the marathon. By having that dehydration and losing those minerals and vitamins, we are giving ourselves another challenge, not to mention the headaches and the general feeling of being completely wiped out more than usual. Most of us don't think it was possible to feel even more exhausted until the recent heatwave in the UK. And I was like, this is a whole new level of tired. I'm not saying electrolytes are the cure because they're absolutely not. A little while ago, Jade from the @FibroGirly account on Instagram recommended that I give electrolytes a try because I hadn't tried them before. And that's what I love about the community. And that's what I hope to be able to bring as well is to bring in these recommendations from people. Since she recommended electrolytes to me, I've been trying a few different brands because there are so many of them out there and it is a little bit overwhelming. I'm currently on a little bit of a mission to find out which electrolyte works best for me. And that's something that I'm planning to share in a future video, is listing my top 5 different electrolyte brands. If you do use an electrolyte and you find that it's useful for you, you think it's, a great product, then please do get in touch because I would love your recommendation. You can email me at fibroafterdark@hotmail.com or leave a message in the comments below, message me on social media. I'm easy to get hold of, but I would absolutely love to know what electrolytes you are using, if any. And hopefully by doing a top 5, it will give you an idea of where to start on your own electrolyte shopping journey. So another thing, which again is a little bit of stating the obvious, but sometimes we forget the obvious, and that is to listen to your body. One of the biggest lessons that chronic illness teaches us is that our bodies don't work to somebody else's timetable. If it's too hot, you need to rest. If you're feeling dizzy, you need to stop, sit down, take a breather. And if your body is asking you to slow down, listen, because if you don't, it will force you. it will put you in bed for longer than what it would have done if you just listened in the first place. And I know that's easier said than done, especially when you've got commitments, if you've got your work commitments, your family commitments, running a home, cleaning, washing, adulting's really, really hard. I totally get it. Sometimes it's not as easy to sort of go like, I need to rest today because I'm on the verge of a breakdown. But I think it's about finding that compromise with yourself that, okay, I can feel I'm heading towards a flare. So let's simplify our next couple of days. Let's see what we can move along. Let's see what we have to do immediately and what we can postpone, because we all feel guilty. It is a big, big part. I've heard so many people echo my own feelings on the guilt of having a chronic illness and how it affects our lives, how it affects the people around us as well. And it's hard mentally, especially when everybody else around you seems to be making the most of the sunshine. And especially if before you got ill, you were a sun baby yourself. I've always favoured the winter and the darker months. So for me, staying inside on a summer's day is perfect. But I understand some people lived for the summer and for the heat and for the barbecues. And that's even harder as well on your mental health when you're not being able to participate in that in the same way that you used to. But the main thing is that you're looking after yourself and to remind yourself that you don't have to keep up. Social media especially can make summer feel like a really difficult time. You see everybody out enjoying festivals, holidays, long walks, family days, garden parties, and meanwhile, you're trying to just conserve the very little bit of energy that you've got left. And it's so easy to feel like you're missing out. But do remember that social media isn't real. It only shows people's highlights, never their lowlights. And your version of summer might look like simply just resting. And that's okay. It's fine. That's okay. You need to do what is best for you. You know, your summer doesn't have to look like anybody else's. It doesn't have to match the Instagram posts and that level of, oh, we're doing this, we're doing that. It's okay. It's okay to stop. I did a episode a little while ago with some tips for managing the heat. So please give that a listen. I think that's episode 3. And that one goes into a little bit more on tips and stuff to try and stay cool. So let's touch upon the emotional side of hot weather as well. We've kind of done it a little bit with the whole like fear of missing out, social media posts, but I don't think we actually talk enough about how emotionally draining hot weather can be without those external factors. And it's not just physically draining, but it's actually emotionally draining. And, you know, you're trying to conserve all your energy. And that means that, you know, you're having to cancel plans because you're simply too exhausted. Similar to what I said earlier about finding that compromise on skimming your days down when you know that you're hitting that breaking point of going into a full-on flare. And those things all combined can feel really isolating. I think it's difficult sometimes to accept that the warm weather has completely changed your entire week. And those feelings are real. They're completely valid. So acknowledge them. Don't belittle yourself. Don't tell yourself that you're being silly or everybody's going through the heat or anything like that. You know, your feelings are valid. This journey is hard. It's hard. And it's not like you can just go take a Lemsip and you'll be all right for a few hours till you can have another Lemsip. You know, it's just surviving. And I think for this week coming up in the UK with the temperatures looking to rise again, I think that's pretty much what I'm going to be doing this next week is just getting through it. So as always, I would absolutely love to hear from you, whether the hot weather influences your symptoms or if the cold weather influences your symptoms. Also, if you're using electrolytes, please do get in touch. I am looking for recommendations to try for my top 5. Please also feel free to reach out and let me know if this episode has resonated with you. I would absolutely Love your feedback on how you're finding the podcast so far. If there's anything you would like me to cover in the future, or if there's anything you feel like you are struggling with, you can always email me, even if it's just for a chat or event. I'm always here. So as ever, thank you so much for spending the time with me today. Please hit the subscribe, like, follow, find me on social media. Honestly, it really does mean so much to me. And if you are struggling with the heat listening to this, then please remember, be kind to yourself, stay hydrated, rest when your body asks you to rest, and don't compare yourself to everyone else's summer, because your body is working incredibly hard every single day, and it's okay to slow down. So take care of yourselves, stay cool, and I will see you on the next episode of Fibro After Dark. Thank you so much, guys. Bye.